Welcome to Coffee Conversations with Les and Paul, 30 Minutes for God.
A podcast sponsored by Piedmont Road Church of Christ and Ministry League.
We're here to discuss Bible topics just as if we're asking Jesus himself. I am Paul Sperlin.
And I am Les Sandifer. We hope you will enjoy our relaxed Bible-based discussions.
Thanks for joining us as we think about and talk about all those things we've asked Jesus over a cup of coffee. Welcome to Les and Paul Show, 30 Minutes for God, Conversations with Jesus. I got that all different directions, but it is good to be with you, and I'm here with Les.
That's why we recorded the intro.
The Les Sandifer. That is right. That is right. And we hope that you have had a good week. We hope that things are going well for you. And Les, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Welcome to the show, folks. We're going to talk a little bit about marriage today, but yeah, it's kind of a rainy day outside, but
it is.
That's supposed to go away, but we'll see what happens. But It's not raining in here, so
that's right.
We're good to go.
We do hope that you have your coffee and you're ready to go. This is called Coffee Conversations with Les and Paul, 30 Minutes for God. So hopefully you got your coffee. We have ours. We're good to go for that.
Yes,
and
good place to start.
It is, and hopefully you've invited the Lord to be a part of your conversation. So
that's right.
That being said, I guess we'll get started in a minute.
Yeah, thanks to our sponsors, Piedmont Road Church of Christ. The eldership here has been very good to us and very accommodating, encouraging, all those sorts of things. Ministryleague.com, easiest place to find these podcasts. If you want to go there, pop out there, go to the networks tab on your app, if that's how you're accessing it.
That's right.
Find all sorts of podcasts, but this one in particular.
That's correct.
Yeah, so that's that gets us started.
It does.
What's the email address you want them to use?
You can send it to Paul at lifeinchrist.com.
Yeah.
Or Paul at ministryleague.com.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. Give us some thoughts. Give us your questions. We're on this topic for at least 3 or 4 more weeks. And then I think after that, we'll be looking for more questions, and some are coming in. So we appreciate that. We want to interact with you if we can. And if you are watching on Facebook, and you probably are if you see us right now, or YouTube, go ahead and hit that share button, hit that like button, and let folks know you like it and share it with folks. So this is definitely a topic from the Bible, something that God wants us to be very up on as far as understanding the information, the things that he wants us to know to make it for a better life. Now, before we get started in that, I do want to make sure, we don't usually advertise a lot, but I'm going to advertise this. We are about to hit the month of June. This is a live show, so we're right here on this 28th day of the month of May.
Yeah.
And we want to let you know about June 7th. June 7th, right here in Marietta, Georgia, right here at Piedmont Road Church of Christ. We're going to serve you lunch. Les, tell them how they can get that.
Drive-through barbecue.
That's right.
Ooh, that even has a ring to it.
It really does.
I think it's the first time I've actually said it. It's on the sign, but it's the first time I've actually said it.
We should make a graphic and everything.
Drive-through barbecue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the whole goal is to have folks from the community come by, and they will be able to drive through our back parking lot, see some areas of work. So there'll be some stations, if you will, for them to get a sense of who we are and what we do, our kids and, other things that are going on here. And then when they finish that circuit, they can drive through come back around to the front of the building, get their food. They can come inside and hang out with us, or they can take it to go. But
whatever your heart's desire.
No cost to the drive.
Free.
Yeah, to the folks driving through.
Absolutely. We're going to give you some schedules. We'll give you some free stuff, some things to give you some information on the church, and some free food. So it's going to be great. We're looking forward to it. And this isn't just for if you live in the area. This is if you live anywhere. If you're in town that day, come on by. Love to have you. Love to see you.
1630 East Piedmont Road, Marietta, Georgia, 30066.
That's it. So we hope to see you then on that day. That is from 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time until 1. So 11 to 1, 11, 12 to 1. Is the time. And you'll come on in and we'll direct you where you need to go. And it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Looking forward to that day. Hope to see you there.
Yeah. Should be great.
Yeah. So last week we started the conversation. We began the conversation about marriage and premarital counseling and having a good, strong marriage. We talked a little bit about the foundation for the marriage and making sure that Jesus is the center, that Christ the center of your relationship with your spouse.
Yeah.
But also that Christ is the center of everything you do in life.
Yeah.
And we talk about some things like that. And so now we're gonna continue from talking about the rock of the church and the rock of marriage to how do we communicate and how do we deal with communication between you and your loved one, your partner for life, your wife, your husband, and how do you deal with conflict? How do you work through these things?
Yeah, one of the things that we did not cover last week, and probably worth covering any week you're on the subject. Well, on the subject of Bible in general, but very specifically on this subject is the idea that God's law does not, what He expects us to do as presented to us in His Word, does not apply only to folks that are Christians. There's a process by which you go through to be in Christ and to be part of God's family, but His law, if you will, is universal to all. It applies to all people. That is a subject matter that is its own study as to why we're saying that. But from a good, strong Bible study on the subject matter, you'll understand that these things do not apply only to you once you become a Christian. God has an expectation that this is the way everybody's going to live their life.
Correct.
And I say that because on the subject of marriage, you will have people that come along and they're living outside of God's expectation for marriage. And they have this notion that when they become Christians, that somehow the blood of Christ cleanses them from
just
the sin,
wash it away.
Yeah, the sin that they're actually living in. Now we'll get into that a little bit more specifically as we march through these lessons. But the high level commentary here is that God's law applies to everybody.
Right. If that weren't the case, I could get married 10 times and then go dump myself in the water and come out and start over. That's not how it works. Well, that's how the world wants to see it.
Well, and if you want to, I guess a basic Bible reference to this, think about the woman at the well and God and Jesus's interaction with her.
Yeah.
And she'd been married multiple times. And his commentary on that subject matter kind of speaks to this.
Even when he says, and the one you're with isn't your husband either.
That's right.
So it's like, fix this.
Yeah.
That in of itself should be the foundation by which we understand that it's one and done. You get one shot for that relationship. And that's what God requests of us. So it's what Jesus requests of people in His day.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So that's a good point.
So as Paul said, we're going to talk about the idea that on this particular podcast, at least start it. Who knows if we'll finish it? We're not locked into any time frame because sometimes these just flesh themselves out in their own specific way.
No kidding.
But we're going to talk about the idea of communication and conflict, and it's a good subject matter, and it's not unique to folks that are preparing to get married because this is a subject matter that will infect and affect you your entire life, your entire married life. I mean, it applies outside of marriage. It's complete.
Right.
I didn't tell you this coming on the air, but Charlotte read something like a meme or something, read it to me. And the essence of it rolled down to this. You can't control things around you, but you can control your reaction to the things around you. That's true. And that's the thing you need to work on. It has been probably the bane of my existence my entire life is that self-control, that ability to control your reaction to something in your life. But that's the essence of what we're really talking about here, right?
Yeah, you can't control the action of somebody else or the action of life, but you can control. It's difficult, but you can control your reaction. And I think that's something to I guess to kick things off. Here is you always hear the thing that count the 10 before you speak. I always hear of the wise preacher that does more listening than talking, and you don't hear him talk to the very end. The wise one, the foolish one will go ahead and spout off and say stuff.
Boy.
It's like you need to think about that before you say that.
Yeah, boy.
So yeah, it's
They
a
just
good
vomit
point.
it out.
I know.
All right, so
the sound makes me want to.
let's go ahead and get this out on the table. One of the silliest phrases a human being will say is, "That's just who I am."
Oh my goodness.
That's an acknowledgement that I'm not even going to try to change.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try to be different.
And that's not acceptable.
That is not acceptable because the reality is you can change,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not always easy.
Right.
Paul said it's difficult.
It is.
Sometimes. For some, it's easier than others because some just maybe have, if you will, a nature to be a little bit more aware and self-examine and change who they are.
So you mentioned a meme that Charlotte showed you last night. We were on the couch watching the Braves lose, and and as we were watching that, I was entertaining myself otherwise because they weren't hitting, and I see these reels on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, and I look at them, and I'm cackling. And she's like, "What is so funny?" And it is. It's these, and you've seen them, you know them. You know, it's the reel where the husband will say something. He says, you know, your wife, "Hey, guess what? This." And sometimes I gotta be honest with you, it's like, come on, man, that was dirty. Don't be doing that mess. But sometimes it's chauvinistic. It's crazy.
That's right.
And you show stuff. And last night I was cackling. I said, "I don't feel this way, but look at this." And she looks at it. She's like, and she rolls her eyes like, you know, and just. And I'm not going to say what it was, but it's funny, but it doesn't mean that's how we live, how we should be. But it's entertaining. Yeah. But that being said, according to Ephesians chapter 5, when we get through the Bible, we find where husband is head of the house, just as Christ is head of the church. But let me tell you something. A marriage is a 50-50 partnership. It is give and take. Now, we still want to follow the biblical order of things. Husband is head of the house, just as Christ is head of the church. But please know, in working with one another, it's not a 60-40 situation when it comes to your words, her words, your words. Mm-hmm. So please treat it like a partnership. Treat it like working back and forth.
Good way to
and respecting one another. Yeah. You know, so let the Bible be the Bible, please. But at the same time, to keep harmony in the home, there's a few things you need to know. You know, whether you have kids or whether you don't. I think it's great for folks to know that you love each other. Okay. Mm-hmm. I went through most of my life and I hardly ever saw my parents ever kissing each other or hugging each other because they were very strict about certain things. But I think it's okay, not to be crazy, but to show admiration for your spouse in front of others. Not crazy, not PDA crazy, but you know what I'm saying? Just where there's no question those two love each other, you know, and let that be. I think that's something that is healthy. You know, don't strip down to crazy things. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying emotionally speaking, allow your other to know you care about them. Yeah. Every day. Do not let a day go by without saying, "Baby, I love you. I couldn't do it without you." You know, things like that. I think that's important.
Well, and to your point, others should be able to see that that's the way you feel too.
That's right.
For every couple, it may not be the same, and it may not present itself in the same way with a kiss or hug or holding hands or whatever the physical part of it is.
Way of communicating, yeah.
But there's certainly the way you interact with who that person is in a public way in front of other people speaks volumes. I'll tell you, it blows my mind to hear somebody belittle their spouse to other people around them. I can't believe he does such and such. It's ridiculous that he would blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, maybe that's something you should cover together. Yeah. But, you know, not when you're with a group of other Christians or other friends or, you know, whoever you're with.
Right.
Well, I think that's part of the communication and conflict.
That's right. Subject but even in a ceremony, I've mentioned this many, many times. Honor each other when you're in the home, but also honor each other when you're among friends. Yeah. You know, husbands, make sure the world knows you love your wife and you'll honor her in front of other people, that you'll speak highly of her. I see too many situations where spouses are dogging out their other. And if that's the case, then you have some conflict resolution to deal with, like you said, at home.
That's right.
Don't be doing that. Don't air out the garbage in front of other people.
Yeah.
Wait to be behind closed doors and be at home to work those things out. And that's really what all this is about. And that leads into the James 1:19 discussion.
Yeah. So how do you, maybe the question you should ask yourself, and Christianity is all about self-examination, constant self-examination. How do you communicate in your marriage? And look, I mean, we're two folks sitting here talking to you about it, really trying to reflect on some scripture, but not telling you that we've got it all right, or that
we're still working on it.
We got the perfect way of handling it, so we can tell you what the perfect way of handling it is. It's really just to go to God's word and remind you. I don't know if we were talking about Facebook Reels and stuff. We hit on one last night that's kind of funny, and it plays into this for me, and I'll tell you why in a minute. The donkey that has the little squeaky chicken. Have you seen this?
No.
Okay. Well, you need to go look up.
Scared.
Just go look up donkey and the squeaky toy.
Okay.
But I don't even know what started it. But now he'll tear up the little squeaky chicken.
Okay.
And then people that have seen him on YouTube will send him a new one. And so the owner will take and the squeaky chicken's probably this tall. Kids will have them.
Okay.
And when you press on them, they just you squeeze them, and then they go make this long obnoxious noise, right?
Hence why all the kids are making those noises.
Yeah. So, but the donkey's hilarious. I mean, donkeys are hilarious anyway. But the donkey picks it up. And
Okay.
Oh yeah, he's in the pasture and he walks around with a squeaky toy in his mouth.
He just steps. Oh, it's in his mouth. Does that step on it or anything?
Well, he does both.
Okay.
Yeah, and at one point in the video I watched, he stood up, so he was doing his thing. But what goes through my head is that, can we allow ourselves sometimes in our relationship and how we're thinking about the other spouse that they're talking and we've tuned them out because it becomes like the squeaky toy,
right?
Like the donkey squeezing that noise. You're like, oh, I'm tired of hearing this.
Yeah.
Because that's interpersonal communication can be tricky sometimes, and we have to work very hard not to let ourselves be that way, because we may immediately hear what they're saying or have something be introduced into the conversation, and we tune it out or try to turn it off because we don't like what we're hearing.
Right.
That's just not the way we should be. But James 1:19, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Easier for some than others.
Yeah.
Some people are naturally, I don't know, calm in their.
I mean, you're dealing with a person you chose, in some cases years ago, to spend the rest of your life with.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to be slow to become angry? You've got to deal with that person. And this is Bible. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. I hope that's not later on in the show, but that's definitely something, I'm like, wait a minute. But it hit me just now. It's like, make sure that when the day is over, that things are great. And when your head hits that pillow, then you feel good about the day and you can't wait for the next one. It's all about the relationship. It's all about the give and take.
Yeah, it's a great point. And when Paul said that, it makes me think about the idea that being angry is not necessarily the problem. I mean, it's a natural part of life for us to have something affect us that way. It's as we said earlier, it's the reaction to it. How do you express your frustration when you're in a moment? Maybe something happens that does anger you in the moment. How do you express the frustration over that, as in your relationship with your spouse or with other people? How do you control who you are when that anger that evidences itself? Because clearly Paul's admonition isn't don't ever be angry.
No,
because that's a human emotion.
You can't help it.
It's how you respond to it.
Yeah.
And
we're quick to go to the very end and talk about be slow to anger and be slow to anger. But let's start it off where it starts off, quick to listen. Everybody seems like in life, this isn't just marriage, this is life. Everybody who wants to be heard are quick to say stuff. They're quick to communicate their words.
That's right.
But we need to take a pause.
I want to get my thoughts in.
Yeah. And it's like, you'll get your time. Just let's wait and see.
Well, you really don't know yet what you're going to hear
That's true.
in the full
Yeah.
context.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you wait long enough, it may even change how
It may
you're going to
unfold like you
respond
want
to
it
it.
to. Yeah. Well, it may
Yeah.
unfold the way you want it to.
Oh.
You never know
Yeah.
until you listen.
Yeah.
In some cases, especially with a husband-wife situation, it's like, you're together for a reason.
Mhm.
Something brought you together.
Yeah.
The good Lord and other things probably had a lot to do with it. But that means you have things in common on some level. Of course, they always say, opposites attract. They do, but you have some commonalities.
Yeah.
And let those things reside in your communication.
Yeah, I think that, and I personally think that phrase is overused, because in general, I think the people that have the longest and most solid marriage are the people that have the most in common.
Mm-hmm.
Not living separate lives, not having
Right.
opposite, and maybe that's more about the nature of who you are than it is the things you like to do.
Right.
When you talk about.
And we mentioned last week about how important family is to God, and how that He uses family in the church. He uses the church as the family, and that's the resounding illustration throughout the Bible. It's God's people. It's the Israelites.
Yeah.
It's Christians. It's it's who we are as people, and he brings us together, even in the church family. It's about family, and I think that's why I think Paul does a lot of that, speaking of that in the latter part of his letter to the Ephesians.
Yeah.
You look at chapter 4, verse 29. Speak only what is helpful. Don't say things that are going to hurt people. That is bad communication.
Yeah.
All right. So be very careful in what you say, and it's okay to say positive things. As a husband to my wife, it's okay to give her affirmation. It's good to share those things. Now, everybody has their own love language, the things they want to hear, things they want that will help them out. You and I have read a book. We talked about some things that deposits, withdrawals, and things like that. But it's okay to talk about the positives and really encourage. And I got to be honest with you, when we finish recording, and the next time I talk to Stephanie, I'm going to make sure and practice some of the things we've been talking about. Like, come on, Paul, you can do better than that. So wherever you are in your relationship, we can always be better.
Yeah. What makes their eyes light up? We talk about love language, or as Paul said in this particular book, he talks about deposits in the love bank. But in the end, it's understanding the other person enough to know what makes them feel better about the relationship and about themselves and where they are in life.
Right.
And it. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're dating somebody and you're preparing for marriage, it, because you can look in their eyes when you say it, and you can see their reaction is overwhelmingly positive to the thing you did.
Right.
Store that away.
Mm-hmm.
Do it again.
That's right.
Or vice versa. You see that it didn't go across very well.
Right.
That's the one you want to scrap. Just put the mental line through it and leave it there, and don't come back to it.
That's right.
So we on this subject matter, we kind of talked about before we came on air, talking about some of the things that create conflict. Maybe we set the stage for that and talk more about that in the next.
That's what's so
episode.
Crazy is we sat here before we started this. We talked about we're gonna get through these. We're like 2 lines in about I don't know 15, 20 lines of information we want to share with y'all, and our time's about up.
Well, it's all donkeys and squeaky chickens.
I know, but now I got to go there.
Man, that should be the title of the show: Donkeys and Squeaky Chickens.
Okay, that's going to be the name of the show next week. So be looking for it.
Donkeys and Squeaky Chickens.
Should we communicate with them? What's happening here?
Yeah.
So we're both going to be kind of out of pocket the next couple of weeks. So we're going to go ahead and record the next 2 week shows, and they're going to come out when they're supposed to come out. They won't be live.
Yeah.
So don't judge us if we're wearing the same shirts we are today. I think that's important. I think complete transparency. I'm practicing the love language of communication.
That's right.
That's what
we're doing.
So we're going to continue this conversation of communication, conflict, donkeys and chickens.
Yeah. And while you've got the time, think about what creates conflict in a relationship, in your relationship or in others. So we can chat a little bit about that next time around.
That's what we're going to do.
With donkeys and squeaky chickens.
With donkeys and squeaky chickens.
That's it.
thank you.
Thank
for
you
being
very
with
much.
us.
We'll do it again.
We will. And we appreciate you for being with us. We look forward to seeing you next time over that next cup of coffee. Thank you for watching Coffee Conversations with Les and Paul, 30 Minutes for God. For Les Sandifer, I'm Paul Sperlin. This has been the show. A big thank you to our sponsors, Piedmont Road Church of Christ. Find them at lifeinchrist.com. Also, ministryleague.com. Find all the resources, the songbook, and everything you need there, and all the podcasts right there at ministryleague.com. And also Citadel Bible Institute at citadelbible.net. Cast your nets to learn how to preach, teach, connect, and do ministry. We hope that you will tune in next week for another installment of Coffee Conversations with Les and Paul. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to being with you over that next cup of coffee.